Welcome to our channel. Today we will embark on an amazing journey through time and space to find ourselves in one of the most famous cities of antiquity, Babylon. This city, which stood on the banks of the great Euphrates River, has been a center of culture, science, and trade for many centuries. Babylon is covered with myths and legends, its history is full of mysteries, and its achievements are still admired. Founded around 2300 BC, Babylon was a small city-state in the first centuries of its existence, but thanks to advantageous location on the trade routes between the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean, it developed rapidly and became rich. During this period, Babylon was influenced by Sumerian culture, which is noticeable in architecture, religion, and writing. One of the most important periods in the history of Babylon was the reign of the king Hammurabi 1790 to 1750 BC. Hammurabi is famous for the creation of the first written code of laws, known as the Code of Hammurabi. This document, carved in stone and placed in public places, contained about 280 laws regulating all aspects of Babylonian life, from family relationships to trafficking and criminal punishments. The Code of Hammurabi was an important step in the establishment of written law and justice in the ancient world. The Babylonian kingdom has experienced many ups and downs. After death, Hammurabi Babylon experienced periods of decline and rebirth. In the 7th century BC, it came under the rule of the Assyrians, but soon regained independence and began a new stage of its heyday in the era of the New Babylonian Empire. Babylon reached its greatness during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar 605 to 560. To this period is considered the golden one in the history of Babylon due to its magnificent buildings and intellectual achievements. Nebuchadnezzar carried out extensive construction work, erecting new temples, palaces, and fortifications. It was then that the legendary Hanging Gardens were built. The Semiramides, one of the 7 wonders of the world. The Hanging Gardens were elevated garden terraces with rich vegetation and an automatic irrigation system that allowed them to preserve greenery even in the hot Mesopotamian climate. The famous Ishtar Gate was also built during this period, covered with bright blue glazed bricks and decorated with reliefs of lions, bulls, and dragons. This gate served as the entrance to the sanctuary of Marduk and amazed everyone who entered the city with its majesty. Babylon became the center of Mesopotamia again. Babylonian culture flourished, and the city became home to many scholars and sages. Babylon has been conquered many times throughout its history, but the key episode was the capture of the city by the Assyrians. In 689 BC, the Assyrian king Sennacherib captured and destroyed Babylon in response to his numerous uprisings and resistance to Assyrian rule. The city was practically wiped off the face of the earth, the temples were looted, and the inhabitants were taken captive. However, a few decades later, in 680 BC, the new Assyrian king Esarhaddon began the restoration of Babylon, seeking to restore it to its former greatness. It was then that the famous ziggurat was built at Amananki, which entered into later legends under the name of the Tower of Babel. Esarhaddon and his successors, including Ashurbanipal, continued to strengthen and develop the city, seeing it as an important cultural and religious center. Babylon was conquered by the Persians in 539 BC, after which it gradually lost its importance as the center of ancient civilizations. The great Persian king Cyrus the Great entered the city without a fight, promising to preserve its greatness and cultural heritage. However, subsequent rulers such as Darius I and Xerxes I did not pay enough attention to the city, and it gradually began to decline. Daily life in Babylon. Now let's see how ordinary life goes in this ancient city. Imagine the morning of a simple inhabitant of Babylon. As the sun rises, the city begins to come alive. A simple craftsman named Enkidu wakes up in his small mud brick house. His wife Inanna is already busy in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. The windows of Babylonian houses usually overlook the courtyard, where you can see many plants and hear birds singing. Enkidu dresses in light linen clothes and goes outside. The dusty roads of the city are already filling with people. Merchants are rushing to open their shops, women are going to the river for water, and children are running to their teachers for morning classes. Noise and uproar gradually fill the streets, creating a feeling of bustling life. Enkidu is a potter. His workshop is located near the house. He makes pottery and sells it at the local market. He has to work a lot because the demand for dishes is always high. He takes clay for his products from the coastal areas of the Euphrates, where there is a lot of it. In the workshop, Enkidu not only sculpts clay vessels, but also decorates them with ornaments, which sometimes include symbols of gods and animals. The morning at Enkidu's house begins with the usual hustle and bustle. The eldest son is preparing for the noise to school. He is 10 years old, and he proudly collects his clay tablets and writing tools. Shumu is heading to a school located not far from home. He crosses the bustling streets of Babylon, greeting acquaintances. On the way, he meets merchants, artisans, and other children heading to the same place. Babylonian schools, called edebs, were centers of education where boys from noble families studied writing, arithmetic, and laws. These schools were located at temples, and the teaching was strict and disciplined. The students wrote on clay tablets using reed sticks, leaving characteristic wedge-shaped marks. The school is an important institution of the city. Shumu studies the writing on clay tablets and the laws created by the most famous ruler Babylon by King Hammurabi. This is one of the first sets of laws in the history of mankind. He is passionate about lessons and dreams of becoming a scribe, recording important events on tablets. Inanna, the wife of Enkidu, is preparing for her daily ritual, going to the Euphrates River for water. With a basket on her shoulder and an earthenware jug in her hands, she leaves the house. Inanna walks through the narrow streets of Babylon, passing houses and shops artisans. The morning air is still fresh and cool, and the city is just beginning to come alive. Women like her are already heading to the river to get water for their families. Inanna always freezes when she approaches the river. Only from here you can see the majestic Tower of Babel in all its glory. The Tower of Babel was built during the reign of the dynasty Hammurabi in the 6th century BC under King Nebuchadnezzar, who sought to restore Babylon to its former greatness and revive it as a center of cultural and religious influence. The tower was a symbol of Babylon's power, and it represented the connection between gods and people. The tower seems unimaginably high, and its steps lead up, as if inviting you to touch the heavens. With every step towards the river, Inanna is more and more amazed by this architectural miracle. Inanna examines the reliefs and symbols decorating the lower tiers of the tower. She sees images of lions, bulls, and other sacred animals, as well as scenes dedicated to the gods of Babylon. Her imagination comes alive, and she imagines how these symbols were created with love and faith to glorify Marduk and other deities. The Tower of Babel, also known as the Ziggurat of Etemenanke, was a stepped pyramid with several platforms. Its design consisted of 3 or more steps, each of which was slightly smaller than the previous one. The original dimensions of the tower are assumed from 90 to 100 meters in height. The tower was laid out using fired bricks coated with blue and green glazes, which were decorated with reliefs of sacred animals such as lions and bulls, symbolizing deities. Each tier had a sanctuary, with an upper sanctuary where the temple of Marduk was located. After taking a last look at the Tower of Babel, Inanna heads towards the river the Euphrates. She fills her jug with clean water and returns home, because she still has time to go to the market. Babylonian markets are famous for their variety of goods. Here you can find everything from fresh fruits and vegetables to fabrics and jewelry. Inanna buys groceries and returns home to cook lunch. She cooks a simple but delicious dish of cereals, beans, and vegetables. The sun is at its zenith, and the heat becomes unbearable. The family gathers at the dinner table. The food in Babylon is quite simple but nutritious. The main products on the table are bread, vegetables, beans, and fish. Sometimes Enkidu and Inanna allow themselves meat, mutton or goat meat. Inanna cooks dishes over an open fire using various herbs and spices, which she also uses he buys at the market. After lunch, Enkidu and his family settle down to rest. In the shade of the courtyards of the houses, the Babylonians spend hot daytime hours, chatting and enjoying the coolness. Children are playing, and adults are talking about the daily life. Enkidu complains to his wife that he has been missing new ideas lately. The clay under his hands still obeyed, but there was no special inspiration that would help create something truly unique. Babylon is a big city, and news travels fast here, especially if it concerns the royal family or important events in the temple. Enkidu often I have heard stories about the magnificent Ishtar Gate, a grandiose structure that impresses with its beauty and symbolism. Many merchants and travelers talk about the incredible glazed bricks and intricate reliefs decorating the gates. Enkidu decides that it's time to see this architectural marvel for himself. He believed that the details and symbolism of the gate could give him the ideas he was missing. It was decided that tomorrow morning he would go to the Ishtar Gate. Enkidu gets up early the next day. He carefully gathers, dresses, he takes his best linen clothes and takes some food and water with him. Before leaving, he says goodbye to his wife Inanna, who wishes him good luck and a safe return. Enkidu sets off through the narrow streets of Babylon. As he gets closer to the city center, the crowds get thicker, and he sees more and more people rushing about their business. Enkidu enjoys the sounds and smells of the city, the cries of merchants, the aroma of fresh fruits and spices, the laughter of children playing in the streets. When Enkidu finally reaches the Ishtar Gate, he is overcome by a feeling awe. A grandiose gate rises in front of him, as if aiming for heaven. Their bright blue glazed bricks shine in the sun, and the reliefs of sacred animals, bulls, lions and dragons, seem alive and full of energy. The Ishtar Gate was built during the reign of the king Nebuchadnezzar 605 to 560 to BC, who is known for his large-scale construction projects in Babylon. The gate was dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, one of the main deities of the Babylonian pantheon, the patroness of love, fertility and war. Enkidu carefully examines every detail of the gate. He is amazed by the subtlety of the work and the richness of the symbolism. Each brick, each relief tells its own story, conveying the power and might of the gods to whom this architectural monument was dedicated. Enkidu spends several hours studying the gate. He makes sketches in his notebook, sketching out the most impressive elements. His imagination is already painting these motifs on his pottery. The lions of Ishtar, the bulls of Odad and the dragons of Marduk are all an inexhaustible source of inspiration for him. The Ishtar Gate was a grandiose structure consisting of two massive towers connected by a central arch. Gates they were lined with glazed bricks of bright blue color, which gave them a special beauty and grandeur. These bricks depicted reliefs of sacred animals, bulls, lions and dragons, which symbolized the gods Marduk, Odad and Ishtar. Enkidu notices how the glaze on the bricks creates amazing color effects and decides that he will try to use a similar technique in his work. Animal reliefs also inspire him to create new shapes and patterns for his jugs and vases. Filled with new ideas and inspiration, Enkidu returns home. His heart is full of joy and enthusiasm, and his head is full of new creative ideas. He can't wait to take up the potter's wheel again and begin to embody the images he saw in clay. As evening falls, life in the city begins to die down. Enkidu completes his business in the workshop and returns home. Religion played a huge role in the life of the Babylonians. They worshipped a multitude of gods, the main one of which was Marduk, the patron god of Babylon. The main temple of the city, Asarjila, was dedicated to him. It was a grandiose structure, where pilgrims from all over Mesopotamia flocked. Each family had their own home altar where they could make sacrifices and pray. In the evening, the family gathers at the altar to offer prayers to the goddess Ishtar, the patroness of love and war, asking her for protection and well-being. After the rituals, everyone gathers again for dinner. Evening meals are usually lighter than lunch and often include leftovers from the day's meals. After dinner, it's time for entertainment. Holidays and rituals played an important role in the life of the city. The Babylonians celebrated many festivals related to agricultural cycles and religious events. One of the most significant holidays was Akitu, New Year, which was celebrated in the spring and was accompanied by numerous ceremonies and processions. Enkidu and Inanna love music and dancing, and often have small parties at home or with friends. The sounds of lyre and flute fill the air, and laughter and conversation resound from every corner of their friendly home. Night falls, and the city is plunged into silence. Enkidu and his family go to bed to immerse themselves in the bustle of the city again the next day. They fall asleep to the steady murmur of the Euphrates and the whisper of the wind coming through the windows. And so our journey to ancient Babylon has come to an end. We visited the heart of this great city, saw its majestic buildings, got acquainted with the daily life of its inhabitants, and learned about achievements in science and culture. Babylon has left an indelible mark on the history of mankind, and it still inspires us with its secrets and legends. The Babylonians, they will make a huge contribution to astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. They will be the first to conduct systematic observations of the stars and planets, which will create one of the first calendars. Thank you for being with us on this exciting journey. Subscribe to our channel, like it, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you soon, and new discoveries.